Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A year ago, I cautioned those speaking of rapid changes. I said nothing will change under Rouhani, and the regime's crisis will only intensify. Allow me to briefly explain the situation. First, the most dangerous crisis engulfing the regime is the popular outrage and readiness of the Iranian people to overthrow this brutal regime. The rise in suppression, including 800 executions over the past year, reflects the regime's failure to control growing popular opposition. Rouhani's promises to resolve economic crisis were hollow. The easing of sanctions and the release of several $1 billion of blocked funds did not help to bring down inflation or unemployment. Two, recent developments in Iraq, regardless of what happens next, is a strategic blow to the Mullahs regime. The Mullahs are the prime loser of Iraq's development. For years, the Mullahs benefited from regional developments to remain in power. But now Mullahs' regional strategy, one of the pillars of its survival, is crumbling. Dispatching commanders IRGC to Iraq and increased meddling in Syria reflect regime's fear of change. A new period has started. The countdown for the regime has begun. Three, on the nuclear issue, the Mullahs are faced with the strategic impasse. On one hand, they fear the domestic and international consequences of defying the world community by continuing the policy of obtaining nuclear weapons, and on the other hand, are concerned about internal consequences of retreating from the bomb, namely an implosion from within. They are trying to use the Western policy of appeasement to buy time and at least keep the pass open to obtain the bomb. Modifying the sanction will allow the Mullahs to increase the domestic suppression and its warmongering efforts in the region. The outcome is not peace and tranquility, but more bloodshed. I therefore warn that any concessions to the Mullahs, whether on Iraq or nuclear issue, will not only open the way for the Mullahs to get the bomb and intensifying the crisis in the region, but is against interests of the Iranian people and the region. Any agreement on the nuclear issue must include the following: accepting additional protocol and agree to snap and unconditional inspections of all declared and undeclared nuclear sites, as well as interviews with all of the regime's nuclear experts and officials without any restrictions. A complete halt in nuclear activities in all sites and programs, including Arak, Natanz, and Fordo, dismantle all sites and facilities related to weaponization of its nuclear project. Parallel with the nuclear talks, the regime must be held accountable and punished for the human rights abuses in Iran and the genocide in Syria and Iraq. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, it has been proved that moderation in the Mullahs regime is simply a mirage. The regime's strategic resources have been exhausted. The Mullahs are facing a deadly impasse in all aspects. Change in Iran is inevitable, but not from within the regime, but by the Iranian people and by the resistance.